I'm just curious, like, is it mostly, things that, Amy Edmondson and others would teach that we should celebrate of those innovation failures? Or are there sometimes just like, oh, that was just a slip up?
I will say that it runs the whole gamut. And sometimes you don't even know what kind of failure it is. And so really we have to be, while some failures are more desirable than others, we have to be okay with every piece of failure, because the things that we're doing are often really complicated. You have to go into lab and you have these cells that are growing, and if you look at them wrong, they'll die or somehow not be doing what you want them to do. And then you have these reagents that could go bad, and you've got all these different types of reagents you have to add at very specific time points and in very specific orders and under very specific conditions to get it to work. And it's almost a little bit like a choreographed dance. I will tell people this, that, I'm not a dancer. I've actually got no rhythm whatsoever. My group will tell you, but I've watched dancers enough to know that if you showed them a routine and then said, okay, you have to go perform it perfectly the first time, right, it's just not possible. And so I think even those more basic mistakes of, I added the wrong reagent or I did it the wrong time, we have to be okay with making those mistakes, but then we have to be able to move on and say, okay, I won't do that again. I'll do better next time. Yeah. But then, the bigger mistakes we say in our lab when we start a new project, how do I make this fail? What's the experiment that I'm going to not want to do? Because in the back of my head, I know that's what's going to make it fail. And so instead, my tendency will be to tiptoe around that and only get to it at the very end. But that's not serving me, and it's not serving anyone well. And how do we just headlong into those failures? And actually, that's why I love the literature on psychological safety so much, because as a leader, that's one of the more powerful things that you can do, is to create a safe space for people to fail and to even reward those really good failures. We kind of throw a party when someone kills their project.
And that's because you throw the party because to celebrate the learning, or at least learning that this isn't worth pursuing further, and that's of value.
It's celebrating the courage to say, I've invested, to overcome the sunk cost fallacy, right? It's celebrating the courage to say, wow, I have invested my blood, sweat, and tears in this, often literally sweat and tears, not literally blood, thankfully. But I've invested in this, my time and my life and my drive and all of those days of working, and for a year and a half, sometimes 2 years. And now to hit a point where you say, based on what I have figured out and what I know, I don't think that this is feasible, or I don't think we're going to be able to do this in a way that makes it worth doing anymore. And so to walk away from that is a really painful, but yet very courageous thing, and has usually happened because someone has done really fantastic science in order to get them to that knowledge and realization.